The president, as you know, wrapped up that first foreign trip. He caused some consternation among American allies in Europe when he refused to directly commit to remaining in the Paris Climate Agreement. You're a strong advocate for clean energy, a stronger stance on climate change. How would an American withdrawal from the Paris Agreement affect the global fight against climate change?
Well, there are three reasons we should stay in the climate accords. First of all, this has to do with the United States keeping true to its commitments. It was the last administration that assembled the biggest group of heads of state in the history of the world in Paris to come together on the biggest environmental agreement in history. This was a first important step towards a solution in terms of moving towards a carbon-free economy. And so us withdrawing from it sends terrible geopolitical signals. It sends signals that we're not going to stay true to our word. And so whether or not you care about climate, whether or not you're a clean energy advocate, I think there are some realists in the foreign policy space who are close to the president. Certainly lots of Republicans with whom I disagree on the climate question who are saying, look, we made this deal, we orchestrated this deal. It is important that the United States stay true to its word. The second reason is, of course, that climate change really is the challenge of our generation. We are seeing the impacts of climate change across the planet as a threat multiplier in the defense space, as something that is causing diminished agricultural and fishery returns, as something that is causing increased natural disasters. You know, we had something called a king tide in the state of Hawaii over this weekend, and the canal that prevents the Waikiki area from flooding was only 6 to 12 inches from overflowing, and there was no rain. There was no rain, and we almost had a flooding event just because of the tide. Climate change is real, and it is our moral obligation as what Secretary Madeleine Albright used to call the United States as the indispensable nation to take care of our planet and to lead on these issues. And finally, I'll just make one political point, which is that if the president vacates the climate agreement, he will have lost a whole generation, maybe several generations of voters for the Republican Party. There are young conservatives out there who are trying to find a home in the Republican Party. But if they're going to be wrong on the Muslim ban, if they're going to be wrong on gay rights, if they're going to be wrong on reproductive rights, and they're going to be wrong on climate, there are going to be very, very few young people who remain loyal to the Republican Party. And so for those three reasons, I think it's essential that the president come to the right conclusion. Knowing his decision-making process, I'm not paying very much attention to the reporting. I think there are going to be rumors all the way up until the end. But I think in the end, some of the more pragmatic voices in the foreign policy space hopefully will win out.
Well, he said last week he would have an announcement this week on this decision. We'll see what he decides. Senator Brian Schatz, thanks so much for joining us.